You find a bike on AutoTrader and it's in budget. The description's a little bit lackluster, but the photos look good, so you decide to drive 3 hours out of your way to go and see it. And then when you get there, you discover that excellent condition apparently means a questionable set of tyres, a chain that's tighter than Ryanair's baggage allowance, and a service history containing the same number of gaps as the Epstein files. But then someone posts a bike in a Facebook owners group, and it sells within 6 hours of that post going out. And the new owner is then posting photos of that same bike on their driveway the very next day. Officially, the UK motorcycle market is still absolutely dominated by the big platforms, the big names. But unofficially, I think the real market has quietly moved somewhere else, and it's happened over the last few years. And the weird part is that I'm not even sure the big players in the market really care and have noticed. The idea for this video came from one of you guys, a commenter, Ben Davies, and he went online and left a comment in last week's video, and you asked yourself, where's the research that's telling me about where people advertise and buy motorcycles from in the UK? Is it AutoTrader? Is it eBay or Facebook? Is it social media platforms or anywhere else? And has this changed over the last few years? Has AutoTrader lost market share as a consequence of the bad press regarding their sales tactics for the car sales? And I personally thought, Ben, that was a fantastic question. So I dive into it, and I want to try and set the scene a little bit by looking at the market that we used to have. According to my YouTube analytics, the vast majority of you guys, my viewers, are blokes from the UK who are aged 45 years old or older. So I've got a very strong sneaking suspicion that there's a possibility that many of you are going to have stacks of MCN magazine dating right back and copies of Ride magazine and Bike all stuffed in boxes around your garage and in your loft. You'll also remember the glory days of the old internet forums where members would post continuously about their bike and have threads discussing the viscosity of different oils and the tyre compounds that they're choosing for their bike. No doubt you've all been part of a generation of bikers who visited bike nights hosted by various different dealerships, where the staff knew your name and were enthusiasts themselves. They probably sold you the bike that you were riding. 10 or 15 years ago, buying a bike in Britain was honestly pretty simple. You had those relationships with dealerships and the staff that worked within them. You could flick through an MCN magazine and go to the classified section within it, buy a copy of your local AutoTrader magazine when you're down the shop, and find your dream bike being sold by a private seller who's just down the road. You even had eBay if you were feeling brave enough in those early days. But the holy grail was the forum. It was a space where those of us who were properly deep into our hobbies and interests would talk about our hobbies and interests, those bikes and those cars that we owned. Because the bloke selling the bike usually had a 40-page build thread that documented every single nut and bolt on that bike. He would be the one that was starting those discussions about the viscosity of oil or the correct tyre compounds for his bike. And that weirdly made him much more trustworthy, despite only knowing him as Razza with a capital Z on the forum. You knew the bike, you knew the owner, and you knew exactly how obsessed he was from every single post he made on that forum. Now compare that to the modern classified sites where full service history can apparently mean there's technically a receipt for the bike somewhere in the loft, but all I've got is this photocopy. And you can start to see where the trust issues are creeping in with the current used market. Today, the market is very fragmented, and importantly, fragmented in a way that makes it really difficult for the industry to measure anymore, because officially the big players are still out there. We've still got AutoTrader and eBay Motors, MCN Bikes for their sales, and Gumtree as well. But unofficially, a huge amount of the market now exists in places where no one can properly track it anymore. We've got Facebook groups and Facebook Marketplace, owners clubs and different social media platforms and social media groups, along with the old school word of mouth method, all becoming legitimate sales platforms all over again. The platforms that are framed as the least trustworthy might now actually be the ones that most of us are using. And the platforms that still dominate the market publicly may no longer be where most of us are actually doing our deals. So let's start with those giants, shall we, and focus on AutoTrader to start off with, because they're the biggest. They dominate the market. They claim to have over 35,000 bikes listed at any one time. And across the automotive sector in general, they describe themselves as more than 10 times larger than their nearest competitor, which makes sense because for years, AutoTrader was the market. If you wanted visibility, you paid AutoTrader. It was that simple. But over the last few years, the platform has shifted focus, and it's less useful for actually selling bikes or cars or vans for that matter. Its focus now is on supporting dealerships, not the private seller like you and I. For the average user like us, It's only good for doing some research into the value of bikes before we go and list it elsewhere for free, or scrolling for hours as I tend to do to find a bargain with my mythical budget, only to send it to my mates and tell them to do a buy. And I know this isn't just my experience of AutoTrader, because whilst doing the research for this particular video, I visited the original king of internet forums for cars, Pistonheads. And then I started looking for threads and topics around the death of AutoTrader, basically. There was one thread that stood out to me from 2004 that was full of brutally honest feedback. One of the users had posted on there saying that they'd used AutoTrader, Facebook and eBay in conjunction with one another, put the same photos on there with the same asking price, and AutoTrader was absolutely useless with not a single inquiry coming in. Another then added on top of that saying they'd paid for the premium ad within AutoTrader and got 300 views on that advert in 3 months and not a single inquiry. Now, I know these are only anecdotal points, but it's not ideal for the business when your business model involves charging people the privilege of £45 just to upload a few photos that they've given you of their bike or their car, and then asking them to go away and write the advert as well. It just doesn't work from a customer's point of view anymore. And the deeper issue might actually be that the pricing system itself, because AutoTrader's valuation tools are based primarily on advertising prices rather than achieved sale prices. And that distinction really matters massively because optimistic priced bikes sit online for absolutely months, and those inflated asking prices then feed the valuation tool, which then tells the next seller, yep, my bike's worth that too. And suddenly, every 2012 middleweight naked bike in Britain is apparently now priced as an investment opportunity. Now, to be fair, AutoTrader's system makes sense when you look at it from a data perspective. But riders are increasingly arguing that it's struggling with the nuance because, well, a cherished bike with receipts and suspension work, fresh tyres and a good history, and a meticulous ownership gets treated almost exactly the same as a neglected one with a mysterious service history, Temu Chinesian brake levers, and a chain lube that's spattered all up the inside edge of the wheel, which shows the bike is just not looked after at all. We know the difference instantaneously when we look at the pictures, but the pricing algorithm often doesn't, and then inflates the prices across the board. Then there's the dealer side. Over the last 2 years, AutoTrader has faced several extensive and well-documented backlashes from dealerships over fee criticisms, pricing criticisms, and they're now even facing a live Competition and Markets Authority investigation relating to, well, their practices in the car market. Now, it's important to point out that the investigation is focused primarily on cars, not motorcycles specifically, but when you look at AutoTrader, the motorcycle side of the business uses the same infrastructure, the same pricing logic, and the same platforms and the philosophies behind how they're developed. And what's fascinating is that even if AutoTrader still dominates visibly in the market, I'm personally not convinced that it dominates in the trust sector anymore. And this whole conversation about trust, I think, is a good opportunity to introduce you guys to this week's video sponsor, who is BEELINE with the BEELINE Moto 2. Because honestly, these things are absolutely fantastic. Modern bikes, well, they're becoming more and more tech-laden, more and more heavy with the technology. And they've got a horrible habit of making things more complicated while somehow improving your life less. You end up with a massive TFT screen on your dashboard, 12 different menus, app selections, notifications, and I've even seen weather widgets on some modern bikes. And meanwhile, all you actually wanted was something like this to show you when the next left turn was coming up. And that's why I like the BEELINE, particularly myself. It strips navigation back to the useful bits. It's really small, it's dead simple, it doesn't clutter the bars, and it doesn't try and turn your motorcycle into like an iPad with a huge screen on the front of it. If you want to find out more about this handy little device, then I've done an unboxing video, which you can see at the pop-up banner at the top of the screen, where I go into a bit more detail about how this little nifty device works and what its pros and cons are. And if you already know what it is because you've been served the various adverts across the various different social media platforms like Instagram and TikTok, well, you can go and grab yourself one if you're already on the edge of buying one from the affiliate link in the description below. You won't pay a single penny more than if you were to buy direct from them, but you will be supporting my channel and helping me create these free-to-view videos. Anyway, back to the topic, because this is where it's going to start getting a little bit weird. So while riders increasingly complain about traditional sales platforms, they're simultaneously moving towards the single most chaotic marketplace imaginable, which is Facebook Marketplace. It's effectively the breeding ground of time wasters and lowballers. Facebook Marketplace exploded during and after the lockdowns of COVID, and it solved several problems instantaneously. We had free listings, massive audiences, instant messenger, fast transactions, and no dealer overheads to deal with. It was just buying direct from the person who previously owned the vehicle. And it sounds brilliant until you remember that there's also basically no protection whatsoever. Santander found that hundreds of customers were losing money in Facebook marketplace scams and vehicle scams. The fraud reports linked to vehicle sales rose exponentially. So if you've ever spent any time on Facebook marketplace, none of this will remotely surprise you, because we've all seen the listings of like a brand new 2023 Ducati Panigale V4S with only 4,000 miles on it, mint condition, service history, £5,200. You look into it and the seller joined Facebook just yesterday. And we all know it's a scam. And it's being ran by a bloke from a laptop the other side of a different hemisphere. But there's a little voice in the back of your head that makes you think, what if it is legitimate though? And this probably leaves that question in your head of, well, if Facebook Marketplace is so risky, why are so many offers still choosing to use it? And I think the answer is brutally simple. It's because despite the dangers, it often works better and it's free. And it feeds into this invisible marketplace, a space where the bikes never really touch AutoTrader. They never appear in dealership stock lists. They never hit public classified ads at all. Instead, they move through the owners groups on these Facebook groups, which have fast become the new version of a forum. Riders communities and club networks, word of mouth and WhatsApp chats end up telling people about bikes that have come for sale. And for experienced riders, that market often feels safer than the giant players that are out there on the playing field. And that's because reputation really does matter in this market. If someone's going to scam someone in a Ducati owners group on Facebook, well, the entire group's going to find out about it by lunchtime. And I think this is a really important bit of this whole video. The motorcycle community still operates socially in a way that I don't think the car market largely does anymore. There's still tribalism, we've still got familiarity, we've still got reputations on the line, which means riders often trust Dave, who posted in the Triumph group every single day for 7 years about his Triumph Trident, more than the 5-star Trustpilot reviewed premium motorcycle dealership that's in our area. And this is having a direct impact on the industry. So much so that I've actually gone into depth on this topic in a video, which you can see at the pop-up banner above. And it's all about the death of the physical dealership. The network has notably shrunk. More than 15 major UK motorcycle dealerships closed during the 2024 financial year alone. But with them closing, the buyers and sellers didn't disappear with them. They migrated to different sources and different platforms to do the deals. Usually still online, usually via free services, and into spaces which were less regulated. And suddenly, the platforms that are available become more important. And I think this is ultimately why the market feels a bit strange right now, because the official marketplaces still look healthy. AutoTrader's 35,000 listings do exist. The platform is still there for us to use, and the dealerships still exist on that platform. But underneath that, the behaviour of us as buyers has quietly changed. And honestly, I don't think the platforms are broken. I think they're just optimised for someone else now. AutoTrader is optimised for the shareholders and the dealerships. Facebook Marketplace is optimised for engagement rather than a safe trading environment. But us as riders, we're optimised to want to find trust. And that's the same for car buyers, which is why so much of the real motorcycle market and car market in Britain right now is operating through communities instead of platform loyalty. And maybe that's actually the most motorcycle thing imaginable. So big thanks again to Ben for commenting on my previous video that sent me down this rabbit hole, because the more I research this, the more I realise that this wasn't a story about a website and AutoTrader. It's a story about what happens when riders stop believing the official systems are there to look after them and start trying to find an alternative. And judging by how many bikes are now changing hands outside of traditional platforms, I think the shift's already happened. Now, as always, I genuinely want to hear your experiences on this one. So where are you guys actually buying and selling your bikes from right now? Are you still using AutoTrader, or have you fully switched to Facebook Marketplace? Or are you just in the owners groups trying to sell the bikes to enthusiasts? And are you still active on those old school motorcycle forums? And more importantly, which platform do you actually trust? Drop it in the comments, because I enjoy reading every single one of them. I enjoy making these kind of videos as well. And if you don't believe me, well, you can go check out last week's video where I discussed the price of new motorcycles and what's driving the prices up so much. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, so if you're new here or a returning viewer, you can do that by clicking my face just down here. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch. Ride safe, and hopefully I get to see you guys in the next one.